Recently, there has been a lot of rain in many places. This reminds me of an anime movie called Weathering with You. There's a line from it that I can't seem to forget. Even if the whole world never clears up again, it doesn't matter. I want you more than the blue sky. The story begins with a peculiar heavy rain. This downpour has been ongoing for 2 months now, with no one knowing the reason behind it. The never-ending rainy season feels like it has no end in sight. In a cold hospital room, a girl named Hodaka sits by her mother's bedside, who is seriously ill and nearing the end of her life. Her mother's soul wishes to go outside, soak up some sunshine. Hina has no choice but to run to the rooftop of the hospital, praying for the weather to clear. In a moment, countless fish-like entities appear beside her, carrying her up into the sky. When she returns to the ground, the heavy rain has miraculously stopped, granting her the ability to change the weather and becoming a sunshine girl. Unfortunately, her mother eventually passes away. 3 years fly by, and the sky still weeps with rain, and Hina had to take her young brother to work for a living. She was very kind. Seeing a boy who couldn't afford to eat, she took pity on him, and secretly gave him a hamburger. But because of this, the shop owner accused her of theft, deducted her entire salary, and dismissed her. To make ends meet and provide for her brother, Hina reluctantly tries her hand at being a rental girlfriend, but her first client she encountered was a creepy man, which disgusted Hina, but for the sake of earning some cash, she chooses to endure in silence. Just then, a boy suddenly rushes in, thinking Hina is in danger, and without hesitation, grabs her hand to flee. They dash through the streets in the pouring rain, only to be caught by the man from before. The man viciously attacks the boy, not expecting him to pull out a gun from his bag. With a single gunshot, everyone is left stunned and terrified. The boy's name is Hodaka. He's also a bitter child. His father's abuse drove him to run away from home. He came from the countryside to the big city to make his way. However, he found himself penniless, and faced rejection at every turn while seeking employment. After being cheated out of his last bit of money by a middleman, Hodaka was left destitute on the streets. The people in the city were very cold. No one treated him well. Poor Hodaka had no choice but to huddle beside a pile of garbage for the night. Even when Hodaka was starving, he still shared his last biscuit with a stray cat. Yet, his kindness did not attract any warmth in return. When he woke up again, a few passers-by scolded him for blocking the path home. Apologizing and attempting to leave, Hodaka was tripped on purpose, scattering the trash around him. He wanted to clean up all the garbage, but unexpectedly found a bag, which contained a handgun. He felt scared, not knowing what to do, so he kept it with him all the time. Hodaka, who hadn't eaten anything for 2 days, came to a fried chicken shop. He drank a glass of water and then fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up again, there was an extra hamburger on the table, and the person who gave it to him was Hina. He was very grateful for Hina's help, which allowed him to see hope in this cold city. Hodaka finally regained his spirits and started looking for a job. Eventually, he landed a job interviewing for a magazine covering strange occurrences. The boss, Suga, was also very kind. Upon learning about Hodaka's experiences, Suga felt sympathetic and quickly assigned him a task to investigate the cause of the prolonged rainy weather and to find the legendary Sunshine Girl. However, fate took a turn when Hodaka inadvertently rescued Hina from harassment by a man. Outmatched by the man, Hodaka resorted to revealing the handgun. Taking this opportunity, Hina took Hodaka and ran away. And so, they arrived at the hospital where Hina's mother had passed away. It was about to be demolished, so there was no one there. Surprisingly, Hina didn't thank Hodaka, but instead accused him of meddling in her affairs, pointing out the illegality of carrying a firearm. Hodaka was aggrieved. He angrily discarded the handgun he had been carrying. However, shortly after, Hina returned. It turned out that Hina, in her efforts to support her younger brother, was trying to earn some quick money, but just as she was about to agree to the man's excessive demands, Hodaka timely appeared and stopped her. So, after calming down, Hina was very grateful to Hodaka. Upon learning that Hodaka was investigating the Sunshine Girl, she took him to the rooftop. There, she devoutly prayed to the sky, and unexpectedly, the heavy rain ceased. Hina revealed to Hodaka that she was the Sunshine Girl he had been seeking. Thus, the two individuals with tumultuous destinies quickly became friends. The next day, Hina invited Hodaka to her home. The apartment was shabby and small, clearly indicating that Hina had been living in dire straits for these past few years. In a sudden realization, Hodaka thought that since the city had been plagued by incessant rain, Hina could use her special ability to make money by praying for good weather, fulfilling the wishes of clients who desired sunny days. The two quickly agreed and posted an advertisement online. Soon, they received their first invitation, although the person hiring them was skeptical and only seeking luck. After Hina prayed to the sky, dispersing the dark clouds, everyone was stunned, initially dismissed as coincidence, but as Hina's fame grew, she prayed for good weather for many people. Brides who wanted an outdoor wedding, there were students who wanted to see the stars, and children who wanted to play sports. Hina's reputation soared. Accompanied by substantial earnings, they not only brought sunshine but also garnered recognition from the public. Even the annual fireworks display sought Hina's assistance in clearing the skies. On that day's grand event, Hina was dressed in a beautiful festive outfit. She stood atop a high tower, hands clasped in prayer. Many droplets appeared around her, and the next moment, the dark clouds quickly dispersed. The sky gradually cleared up. The bright sunlight pierced through the dark clouds. Hina illuminated the whole world. The fireworks display proceeded as planned. The blooming fireworks brought hope once again to the people. Watching the blossoming fireworks, Hina and Hodaka conversed about their pasts on the rooftop. A hint of ambiguity lingering in the air as their hearts slowly drew closer. The city became aware of Hina through this grand event. Subsequently, more invitations followed. However, Hodaka noticed that as the requests for sunny days increased, Hina appeared increasingly fatigued, so Hodaka immediately decided to pause all work after completing this task. Hodaka wanted to use this time to prepare for Hina's upcoming birthday. Meanwhile, the magazine editor-in-chief, Suga, came to a temple to investigate the mystery of the Sunshine Girl. He learned the secret of the Sunshine Girl from the monks, as her ability was a gift from the gods, making her also a sacrificial offering. The monk told him, "Everything has a price," and the fate of the Sunshine Girl was destined to be tragic. Hina and Hodaka could have continued their happy days like this, but the incident of Hodaka carrying a gun was discovered by the police. Soon, a citywide manhunt began. At this time, Hodaka, introduced by a friend, came to a jewelry store. He spent a full 3 hours picking out a ring that he planned to give to Hina as a birthday gift, but he didn't know if she would like it. As they walked alone in the alley, Hodaka gathered his courage to take out the ring to give to Hina, but Hina suddenly turned around. It seemed like they both had something to say, but at that moment, many raindrops surrounded Hina, and a strange wind blew. Hina was unexpectedly swept up into the sky. When she landed on the ground, her body had become transparent. It was then that Hodaka realized, the more times Hina prayed to the sky, the closer she would get to it. Perhaps as early as 3 years ago, Hina had already connected with the sky. Since then, Hodaka decided never to let Hina pray to the sky again. But that day, the police had already found their residence based on clues. Although Hodaka managed to hide in the bathroom and evade the police chase, the fact that Hina and her underage brother lived alone was reported to the Child Welfare Association by the police. This meant Hina's brother would be forcibly taken to a welfare home for adoption. Due to Hodaka carrying a firearm, Suga also didn't dare to shelter him anymore. Suga gave him some money. Hope he can live well. Hina didn't want to be separated from her brother, so in the end, they chose to escape. Strangely, the rain that day was heavier than usual. The intense downpour caused the temperature to plummet, and soon snowflakes began to drift from the sky. However, as they attempted to flee, they encountered the police. To protect Hina and her brother, Hodaka chose to attract the attention of the police. But how could he outrun the police? In no time, he was pinned to the ground by the police. In this critical moment, Hina lunged forward, desperate. She had no choice but to use her special ability. Unexpectedly, this time, Hina directly summoned lightning, which struck a nearby truck with a loud bang. The raging flames caught the attention of the police. Taking advantage of this opportunity, they escaped from there. The three of them found a hotel. Because they didn't have identification, they had to pay a high price for a luxurious suite. Here, there was a warm big bed, spacious bathtub, countless snacks in the fridge. They had dinner together here, singing songs, having a great time. At this moment, Hodaka had even forgotten they were on the run, but the happiness in front of him, he only wished it could last a bit longer. A bit longer. Late at night, Hodaka finally took out the ring and gave it to Hina as a birthday gift. Hina liked it very much, but suddenly her mood plummeted. Hina then untied her bathrobe. Her body, due to excessive use of her special ability, had become almost entirely transparent. Hina told Hodaka, "The Sunshine Girl is a living sacrifice. Only when the Sunshine Girl completely disappears will the uncontrollable weather return to normal." Hina could sense that she might disappear at any moment, so she wanted to ask Hodaka to take care of her brother. Hodaka refused to believe all of this. They held each other tightly, and who knew how much time had passed? Hodaka fell asleep. Hina's body suddenly emitted a glow. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on top of a white cloud. Those things that looked like small fish surrounded her. Her body also became ethereal. The ring passed through her transparent hand and fell. Hina was heartbroken. She understood that this was her destiny. She returned to the sky, and the abnormal weather would return to normal. At that moment, Hodaka suddenly woke up, only to find Hina had disappeared. He was about to go out and search, but the police had already arrived. Hodaka was immediately arrested. As he stepped out of the hotel, he noticed that the city was no longer raining. Bright sunlight, clear skies, people were ecstatic, but only Hodaka understood that all of this was exchanged for with Hina's life. Suddenly, the ring fell from the sky. Hodaka picked up the ring. He seemed to understand everything. He ran forward as if possessed, but was tackled to the ground by the police. Desperately, Hodaka tried to explain Hina's situation to the police, hoping they could go save her, but everyone thought he was insane. Now, the only one who could save Hina was Hodaka. So, taking advantage of a moment of distraction among the police, he swiftly escaped from there. He was heading to the hospital where Hina had gained her special ability. Once he reached the rooftop, there was a chance to bring Hina back. He ran for his life. If only he could run a bit faster, there would be hope for Hina to live. Exhausted, Hodaka finally arrives at the building. To his surprise, the boss of the magazine, Suga, was already waiting there. Upon hearing the news of the Sunshine Girl's disappearance, Suga advised Hodaka to accept it all, to return to the police station and surrender. But now Hodaka only wanted Hina to come back. The two of them began to tug at each other. In the midst of the argument, Hodaka was pushed to the ground by Suga. It was then that Hodaka suddenly noticed the handgun that had been abandoned there initially. In order to save Hina, he had no choice but to aim the gun at Suga. But at that moment, the police also arrived. Hodaka begged and pleaded. He kept shouting, hoping that the police would give him some time, as long as he could save Hina, even if it meant sacrificing himself willingly. Hodaka dropped the handgun, then turned and rushed towards the rooftop, but he was forcefully pinned to the ground by the police, handcuffed. In a crucial moment, Suga used his body to push away the police, buying Hodaka time to escape. Yet just as Hodaka took a few steps, he was blocked by another police officer. At the moment when Hodaka was caught in a dilemma, Hina's brother rushed over. He threw himself at the police officer, desperately urging Hodaka to go save Hina. And so, Hodaka finally reached the rooftop, but suddenly, he was sucked into a whirlpool. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself above the sky. Hodaka shouted Hina's name loudly, and finally, above the clouds, he spotted Hina's figure. Hina immediately leaped into the sky and held Hodaka's hand tightly. They quickly plummeted from the sky, but the powerful air currents separated them once again. Hodaka exerted all his strength to hold onto Hina's hand, never wanting to let go again. They wished time could freeze at this moment. A white light flashed. When they opened their eyes again, they were safely back on the rooftop, but the city was raining heavily again. Without Sunshine Girl as a sacrifice, the unusual weather has reappeared, but Hina was finally saved. After these events, Hodaka was sent back to the countryside, restricted in his personal freedom. He never saw Hina again. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hodaka's probation was lifted. When he returned to the city, it had turned into a vast sea. Many buildings were submerged. Hodaka felt guilty. He believed the city had transformed like this, all because he had saved Hina. On a familiar street, Hodaka encountered that familiar figure once more, the girl he had longed for, perhaps due to his guilt towards the world. Hina was silently praying at that moment, but now she was no longer the Sunshine Girl. In the rain, the two embraced each other excitedly. Their story finally reached a happy ending.